You're most welcome to our video today. This is Steve back here in Cebu with our pandemic update, day 400 and something. Apologize for the little break in new material. We had I had some vaccine issues. I've been getting quite a few vaccine boosters to make sure that I'm safe. But now, new news today. You know, of course, the pandemic is going on, and that's going to go on forever because the government seems to like that control, and that's very important for the government to stay in control so that we're not in control of ourselves, because I might be, or you might be, irresponsible. Better to have a good, responsible government telling us what to do, how to do it, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, when to not wear a mask, and all that kind of stuff. But new news, as you've probably heard, once again, the Palestinians are firing missiles into Israel, and surprise, surprise, they're getting their ass handed to them. But it's kind of a repeated story. They do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. I guess they're expecting Israel to just surrender or whatever, but okay. This is all you need to know about the Palestinian situation. You're not going to hear about this much in the mainstream media. For some reason, it just doesn't get covered. But the three things you really need to know. Number one, most important, is the Palestinians are always wrong. It's really that simple. The Palestinians are always on the wrong side of any issue. They are always wrong. Now, the Arabs also know this, but for some reason try to pretend like they're not always wrong. There's really no way to explain this other than maybe that they're also always wrong also. Number two, the problem is the solution. This kind of goes back to number one. This was a phrase I coined, I believe, 30 years ago. And it applies to almost every problem that you can't quite understand politically. The problem is the solution. Now, if there was peace between Israel and the Palestinians, that would be a bigger problem than the ongoing conflict, because then what are the Palestinians going to do? Who are they going to blame for all their problems if they can't blame the Jews, the Zionist pig dogs, the little devil or little Satan? And it's like Jesse Jackson, goes back to Jesse Jackson, global warming, like, you know, Jesse Jackson, always ranting and raving. He's pretty much out of the news now, left behind by Black Lives Matter. But just always complaining about some problem, never a solution, because someone like Jesse Jackson, if there isn't racial strife, what is Jesse Jackson going to do for a living? Not much. But the problem is the solution. As long as they keep that problem fired up, that's the solution. Complain, complain, complain. So the problem is the solution. And same with global warming. And these are all, surprisingly, these issues, and I've just never been able to understand this, or at least I've been able to kind of understand it in my mind, but not explain it, and I still don't know how. But if you look at people that are blaming Israel, and let's go to just in America, people that are blaming Israel, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, a phenomenal musician, composer, all that, but just a complete idiot. The people that are blaming Israel are also the ones that are just hoping and praying for global warming. They think you should still continue to wear masks, continue to social distance, continue to keep businesses closed down. They don't like cars, even though they enjoy their own. It's just that they just want control. They want order in a chaotic world. You can't have order. They want people to do what they want them to do. They would never think of that in the natural world. To try to get lions to not eat goats or antelope. Oh, don't chase the antelope. Try a vegan diet. They wouldn't even think of that, but they're going to try to get people to do what goes beyond their nature in all sorts of situations. Okay, so that's it. The Palestinians are always wrong, number one. Very important to know. Always wrong. Number 2, the problem is the solution. And then number 3, and this is kind of all, of course, ties in. Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel in the 1960s, yes, actually a woman, female president of a Middle East country. And in Israel, of course, still, even back then, and then still today, is kind of the only country in the Middle East where a woman is allowed to drive a car, vote, speak in public, show her face in public, decide if she wants to or does not want to get raped. The only country in the Middle East that has Western values, I guess I'm saying. And I know that's kind of a little narrow-minded of me, because the values of the Middle East they're equal to ours. If you want to throw homosexuals off a building in Syria, that's just an alternative lifestyle. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that doesn't work here. And in Israel, that's not really acceptable either. But Golda Meir said many, many years ago, this is now over 50 years ago, she was asked by an American reporter, and who it was doesn't matter. They asked her, and this was during a conflict, or just after, probably after the Israelis just kicked the shit out of a bunch of Arab countries that attacked them for no reason and without warning. Okay, Golda Meir was asked by a reporter, this was during a conflict of some sort with the Israelis and the Arabs fighting. Golda Meir was asked, when will there be peace in the Middle East? And she said, there will be peace in the Middle East when the Arabs learn to love their children more than they hate Jews. And that kind of sums it up. Until they can get over that, there's not going to be peace, because, back to number 1, Palestinians, always wrong. Number 2, the problem is the solution. And the Arabs and Palestinians, Arabs, kind of interchangeable term for that area, they just, and don't want to get into religion, but Mahatma Gandhi wrote about this when he was asked how he brought a peaceful transition from English rule to independence in India. But, and I'm no biblical scholar, but the teachings of Jesus Christ, he mentioned forgiveness quite a bit. And from my understanding of the Quran and the Islamic writings, there's not a whole lot of forgiveness there. So without forgiveness, you have vengeance. And like the Hatfields and the McCoys, back in American history, 150 years ago, it was 2 families that lived in some hills in West Virginia or somewhere like that. They were fighting. I can't even remember what the term is, but the Hatfields and the McCoys, I think any of you that know a minimal amount of history, there was an Abbott and Costello movie about that. But they were just fighting, one would kill a family member of the Hatfields, and the McCoys would have to get even, and that went on and on. It was a big deal. But that only went on for 3 or 4 years, actually. That seems like a clan that when you read about it, sounded like it went on for generations. But it was only 3 or 4 years, and then they made peace or whatever, or found somebody else to hate. But just the vengeance, the Arabs are fighting amongst themselves, each other. The Israelis, they don't really remember what the whole fight's about, but they do remember there's a fight, and they're angry, and they can't forgive. Now, another thing with the Palestinians, of course, just firing these rockets, random rockets. These things cannot be aimed. They're just pointed, and you hope it continues going in that direction. Some of them turn around, land on Palestinians. They kill their own people, which is no big deal for them. But God forbid a errant Israeli missile or some collateral damage kills the civilian. That seems like, they make it sound like that's the worst thing in the world. All right, and I hope you've noticed our new studio. It's a little more casual atmosphere, bringing you the news like in your living room, discussing it with you. And it's kind of like one-on-one, which with my viewership, it pretty much is one-on-one. But we do appreciate that one viewer. And I'm here, of course, in Cebu City, Queen City of the South in the beautiful Philippines, the most locked down country in the world. But if you've got to be locked down, it's more fun in the Philippines. Beautiful view out here. We'll show you a little picture out there. Kind of cloudy, but nice. And a peaceful, friendly country, not like the Middle East. Okay, now the solution with the Middle East problem is, who knows? It's so simple yet so complex. Now the only, the real peace, the lasting peace we've had in the world, after World War II, Germany and Japan, I'm here in the Philippines, Japan did some very terrible things here in the Philippines. I mean, Germany gets all the credit for all their atrocities, but the Japanese, not to be outdone, were brutal here in the Philippines, in Korea, in China, anywhere they went. But you don't see problems or hear about problems with the Japanese or the Germans anymore. And that's because they got the shit kicked out of them at the end of that war, to end that war. Germany, the whole country was bombed. I believe in Germany and Japan, 95% of the buildings had damage, were either destroyed completely or damaged. Totally demoralized the people, took the fight out of them. In Japan, of course, the conventional bombing did way more damage than the 2 nuclear bombs. Just didn't happen quite as quick, but there was they would send 300-400 planes a day to bomb, whatever it was they were aiming for, twice a day, 2 bombing runs a day. Same with Germany. Total devastation, and maybe that's what the Palestinians need to really let them think over if they really want to get in a fight, and what are they even fighting for? Everyone talks about compromise. The compromise with the Palestinians. What compromise is there? The Jews just want to live in peace. The Palestinians and the Arabs want to kill all the Jews. So what is the compromise? Well, we can have peace some of the time, and we'll only kill half the Jews? Well, that sounds like a compromise to me. I just have a feeling that the Israelis are not going to accept that. And the Israelis can dictate the terms because they're right, and they have the might. Very advanced country, agricultural system in Israel. They produce a lot of food. They've made the desert bloom, unlike Palestine, where they can, all they can do is turn, medium-sized pieces of rubble into small pieces of rubble. That's the technology in the Palestinian territories, and kind of the whole part of the world excluding Israel. And to expect Israel to not react, and I think that Israel has been reacting, holding back. It's been at least 2,000 missiles fired. Could you imagine if you're in San Diego, and, well, California is a bad example because they might put up with it, but let's just say you're in San Diego 25 years ago, and the Mexicans decide they want to start firing missiles into San Diego from Tijuana. And, every missile doesn't hit, but a couple of them do. What do you think would be left out of Tijuana? In 30 minutes, there'd be nothing left. And in a week or two, the U.S. military would go to Tijuana, all the way through Mexico City, probably down to Argentina, and wipe out that whole place, just to make sure it's safe. There'd be a little bit more of a buffer zone than the Israelis have. And the Palestinian territories, so-called Palestinian territories, that was land taken by Israel when they were attacked a couple different times, and land that they've kept after a war for defensive purposes, so the Arabs can't get close without warning. Israel is a very tiny country. It's like 10 miles wide in some places. It's very hard to defend. They kept the Golan Heights and some other territories just as a buffer for defense. And on the compromise, that's not going to work. But if you look at this, like, what if the Arabs and the Palestinians put down their weapons and stopped fighting? There would be peace. The Israelis are not going to just start fighting. There would be peace, and the Israelis, if the Israelis absolutely knew they had security, they would give the territories back, or most of them. And it would not be that easy at this time, because they've had those territories for 50 years. They've developed them. But the Israelis are looking for peace, and they'd be willing to accept some terms if the Palestinians stopped shooting and put down their weapons. Now, on the other hand, if the Israelis put down their weapons, I don't need to tell you what would happen. They would all be killed. And, as I say, never again. Israel has a very sophisticated military. They have the best military in the world for size. They've held off all the Arab countries several different times, have attacked them and just got the shit kicked out of them. It's very embarrassing for the Arabs, their history with Israel, with the attacking. And they don't want to deal with that again, but they also don't want to admit that they're just equal even, as opposed to inferior. So, well, that was it. I hope that's a little bit helpful. The 3 rules of the Middle East. Palestinians are wrong, the problem is the solution, and there won't be peace until the Palestinians learn to love their children more than they hate Jews. That's it, and we're going to try my new sign-off, see if that works. Whoops. Did that? Is that working? Is that off?